does not. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. Do you ever feel like anime falls into two categories? The stuff with fan service and the stuff without it? Let me show you what I mean. So on the left side, I'll show a bunch of anime that feature female characters, but that don't really use them for fan service. And on the right side, I will show clips of female characters that are used for fan service. So here are some children, anywhere between like the ages of 4 to 12. Here are some mothers, just any female character with a child. And here are some characters that are canonically like at least 60 years old, like older women. So as you can see from my examples, in some anime, it literally doesn't matter what phase of your life you're at, you're never safe from fan service. Whether the character is pre-puberty or post-menopause, the audience is spending most of the story looking at them, evaluating them for their sexiness or their cuteness. If a character on the left side is sad, we're likely to feel sad with them, whereas on the right, the character's sadness or humiliation is equally likely to be a joke. When I see animators bringing to life the joy and freedom of being a little girl, running as fast as you can, or hugging your best friend super tight, even the raw fury of finally snapping at a bully, it feels all the more despicable when you see Kana being sexualized playing Twister with her 9-year-old friend, or when 11-year-old Shiro from No Game No Life is introduced by a panning shot from the floor, exposing her underwear before we ever see her face. Okay, so to start out, I'm just going to start simple and reverse the sort of character design aesthetics between these two characters. This is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon? It is a light novel adaptation, which are usually the worst offenders for some reason when it comes to like really egregious fan service and stuff. But all I'm really going to do here is I'm going to take our primary character up in front and I'm going to give him Hestia's kind of outfit. It's not literally a dress, but I'm going to try to make like the boy version. So I'm going to drastically shorten his pants, make all of his clothes quite a bit tighter, and we're going to utilize this blue ribbon that is an accent on Hestia's design in a few places on his body, really accentuating sexualized parts of his form. I'm gonna say right off the bat, this felt so creepy and weird. I honestly don't think that the fans of this show would tolerate it if these characters' designs were swapped. Like, if this was our main character and he was running around with little blue ribbons over his like nips and crotch region, I just don't think they would like it very much. The main goal here is just to essentially like resensitize us. I think we do get very desensitized to things that we see all the time. So when it comes to anime, especially when you're like me and you've been watching since you were a child, Hestia's design doesn't look that crazy. I think the little string under her boobs are probably the most like, you know, it draws your attention even if you're pretty used to this type of design styling for a female character, because it just looks so impractical and like hard to move in. Like it looks even more uncomfortable than a lot of fan service-y design, so I think that kind of stands out. I also wanted to use this particular anime because it did kind of get the center of a Twitter debate, because there's another character based on the same goddess named Hestia in Hades, and there was a huge conversation about what makes a good character design, because there were people who were fans of this anime who made this post basically saying like, look how much better Japan's perception of the goddess Hestia is because she's so much hotter, unlike this old lady who's totally not hot at all, which is really funny. We can get more into that later. We're definitely going to talk about the old lady from Dandan. But in the meanwhile, I also switched over Hestia's clothes. She's now wearing more or less what our male protagonists wearing. Obviously, Hestia's proportions are already really fan servicey. She has a shockingly slim figure for how much body weight is on her upper torso region, but I'm not going to adjust any part of her body. Look, there are people who naturally are shaped like that. We're not trying to shame anybody, but I do think that she looks dramatically different when she's in looser fitting clothes and warmer clothes, and it did make me realize, like, man, one of them has got to be uncomfortable, especially because women usually run colder than men, which is why women tend to take hotter showers and keep the thermostat up higher. They tend to be colder in office buildings where the temperature is set to a male comfort point. So it actually makes more sense for him to be dressed more scantily and for her to have a jacket on, but I digress. Here is our reversal. I kind of did a sloppy job like covering up the background, but I think if you squint at it, it looks okay. And man, this looks so perverted. I do like how comfy she looks though. I mean, it's gotta feel nice to get that ribbon out from under her boobs. So next I wanted to redesign Seiko Ayase from Dandan. Again, Dandan kind of inspired this entire video. I was very hyped up to watch it because I saw the opening, and also I love Studio Saru, who also did the most recent Scott Pilgrim anime, and the animation is top-notch in this show, but I was really shocked at the actual content of the anime, and I think it's because I had been undesensitized. I'd been resensitized to sort of the more fan servicey, slightly misogynistic bent of a lot of serialized manga and anime, because first of all, I was surprised to see that the grandma character just straight up looks like a woman tops in her 30s, and like they make a couple references to that, the fact that she looks way too young and hot to be Momo's grandma, but so far we don't really have a reason. And regardless of what the reason is, like in the canon of the show, I feel like the real reason is that the manga artist just didn't want to draw an old woman as like one of the primary characters in the show. He would rather draw a super curvaceous younger looking woman, and we actually get a different granny, albeit a kind of a yokai in the initial episode, but it's like her agedness is so grotesque because she's, you know, a yokai. So I think it's kind of interesting looking at these two and seeing like, okay, this is the way that, like, if you want to be a main character in a story, if you want to actually have value in the story, you have to look like this, like even if you're a grandmother. Even Turbo Granny quickly gets turned into a different non-human form, so basically we don't have to keep looking at this wrinkly old bat, as they keep saying. Of course, I don't know if that's exactly why all of these things happen, but I do think like it's not uncommon for anime to rapidly age down characters, and I do feel like that's for relatively shallow reasons. I did think it would be fun to try to redesign her with this sort of like street style swag that she's got going on, but also keep her actual age, make her age more visible on her face and body. So I actually got to doing some research on the fashionistas of the upper age bracket, and I found some really cool and very inspiring images of some older women who are dressing kind of like this more street style. It actually made me a little bit madder as I was doing the research, because I was just looking at all these older women and feeling like they look so cool, they have so much aura, and I'm like, why can't they ever see themselves in stories? Like, why can't they see themselves in movies or TV almost ever? You know, why does everyone have to always be aged down? It just doesn't seem fair, you know, like these types of women aren't represented in a lot of places. And so in a story where there is this grandma character who is supposed to be important, it feels kind of like a ripoff to have her look like she's 29 years old, and have like 75% of her boob out at all times. Yeah, anyway, I got super inspired by these older fashionistas, and I tried to utilize a lot of the things I was seeing in common in their fits. Like, it seems like older women are doing really interesting stuff with like silhouette and shape, and a lot of cool layering, so I wanted to include that. I also saw a lot of really cool glasses, which is great because Seiko does have glasses. I did change them to be like a chunkier, funkier, more artsy kind of glasses, which I think looks really cute on her. And I kept her really tall hair, but I put a little bandana over the top. I was seeing a lot of cute scarves and bandanas over hair in my research of older women, so that's what I did. I also included a little tag on her zipper. It's this Japanese charm. I just thought that would be fun since she is like essentially like an older shrine maiden type. She's a spirit medium, and so I wanted to include something on her design that directly ties into that. And I didn't make her look like insanely decrepit, but she's clearly an older woman who's like lived a lot of life. I kept her cigarette, of course, and her bat. I also copied her color palette pretty directly. I didn't change too much about it because, again, like, I don't think Seiko's design is like horrible or anything. I just really thought it would be fun to see what she'd actually look like as an old woman, since we don't really get to see that. The only old woman that we get to see in this anime is like the monster from the first episode. A lot of people mistake the criticism of fanservice as a desire to remove sexuality and attractive characters from media, but fanservice is very different from adult content being in a story. Fanservice doesn't even always mean sexy imagery, which helps us get to the difference. When a character in a comic book movie makes a joke that references something from the source material that only a fan would get, that's fanservice. When My Little Pony canonizes a brony meme into the show, that's fanservice. It's anything in a story that is put there just for the audience's benefit, agnostic from the actual story. It's something that would not exist in the story without a meta acknowledgement of the audience who is watching. So characters can be sexually active, they can be naked on screen, they can be visually attractive, without any of that necessarily being fanservice. If it's a part of the story, if it fleshes out a character or a relationship, even if it just adds to the themes of the narrative, there is a reason for it to be there other than the gratification of the audience. The way the camera behaves can also be a good clue as to the intentions of the scene. Let's use an example from Dandan. Here our main character is unconscious. A possessed character wants to bite her, nobody else is around. The artist composed the scene with the monster lifting her by her ankle, her skirt flipped up, so that we, the audience, can see her underwear. This action could have been posed 100 different ways, but we get multiple angles of her defenseless body, her underwear centered in the frame, because the goal of this is sex appeal for the reader. It's actually incongruous to what's happening. If we're empathizing with our protagonist, we should feel creeped out or scared, and the cheap panty shot muddles that. It's made sexual only for us. That is fanservice. Another good example is the scene from Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon? Here, Hestia is crying from relief and worry for our main character and hugging him. But the way that is shown is with a camera shot directly at her cleavage, and a boing sound plays as she cries and expresses how worried she was. The sound of her boobs are literally drowning out the emotion of the scene. I think it's supposed to be funny, but is the joke just that she's stacked? I'm particularly troubled by this dissonance of experience between the female character and the audience when it's some kind of vulnerable or upsetting experience for her, with fanservice for us. We get fanservice of Hestia while she's experiencing an emotional upset. We experience fanservice of Momo as she experiences a terrifying attempted assault. The repeated pairing of sadness, embarrassment, or terror from our female lead with fanservice for the audience makes us go from an annoyance to something that feels incredibly sinister. This dissonance also makes it harder for an audience member to empathize with the character. Can you imagine how distracting it would have been if, when Madoka cried, we were looking up her skirt? If Erased focused on Kaio's chest when she finally opened up to Satoru? If the fight in a silent voice was made into a joke about them straddling each other? These exploitative choices make a stark difference in how we experience and view the characters and events. Alright, next I want to talk about Kana's design. Kana is from Dragon Maid, and this is an anime that I watched basically all of. It's another one of those anime that I feel like there were parts of it I liked so much. It's well animated, I think it's cute, but then there would be these scenes where I'm just like totally repulsed. And so I always like talking about this anime because, again, it's not just like I'm sitting here as a hater who thinks the whole thing is horrible, but I feel genuinely like there's a lot of like missed opportunity when you make these choices. It makes it hard for a lot of people to watch it or appreciate it. And particularly I feel that way about the way that they sexualize Kana. Now a lot of anime fans will say that they don't do this. I harshly disagree, and I'm going to make my argument. But first of all, I just wanted to edit the edge of her skirt and bring it down a little bit and show you guys like how it doesn't really damage her character design. I still think she looks extremely adorable when her skirt's a little longer. I feel like when we have characters who look like they're supposed to look like they're 9 years old, she's supposed to be 9, and she acts even younger than that in the anime, I would say. Why does she have to have thigh highs with her skirt barely down to her butt cheeks? Like, I just genuinely think that that's a weird choice for a little girl, and I don't feel like you have to be a total prude to feel like that's like a weird character design choice for a young girl. I also wanted to do another like more full redraw of her in sort of a slightly different art style. This was more inspired by Monster, which was the other anime that got me thinking about this, where every single character was treated with equal respect, I would say. So every female character, whether she's a little girl, a young woman who's canonically beautiful, an older woman who's like more like a sexually active character, like they were all treated with respect. And so I wanted to try to like emulate the style just a tiny bit and see how that would change our perception of Kana if I made her look more like a little girl and less like this sort of gothic Lolita doll thing that she's looking like now. I mean, she is technically a dragon in this story, but again, throughout the story, when they're not in their dragon form, they really do take on a more human-like appearance and action, to the point where within the fiction it just feels like they're human. I mean, she goes to school, she carries a backpack, she has friends who are in the same age bracket that she is appearing as, so she feels like she is truly that age, even if like technically in the story she's not. I also gave her a little Tamagotchi because I wanted to include the fact that she has electric powers. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that in this style she looks better, but I do think it's interesting because I do feel like the way we interface with her is different when she looks more like a little girl, more realistically like a little girl, that is. So yeah, I do wonder how it would change certain scenes, like particularly the scenes between her and her friend, which are the most egregious in my opinion when it comes to sexualizing her. When you think about the fact that these stories are being written by adults and read by adults, you know, you can't really utilize the fact that they're young, innocent children who don't know the implications of what they're doing, because everyone involved in this entertainment product, from the creation to the reception of it, are adults. So yeah, if that makes sense, it's disturbing to me. Okay, so I'm returning back to Hestia because again, her design is pretty interesting to me. It started that whole debate like I was talking about between Hestia from Hades and Hestia from the world of anime, from Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon? I watched some clips of her best clips on YouTube, and I do think that the problems with Hestia go a lot deeper than her design. I personally did not watch a ton of this show because I found it to be not interesting. So I wanted to try designing Hestia within the anime art style, and even with the idea that she's supposed to be a young, attractive iteration of Hestia, but still utilize more of the goddess and make it more clear on her design what she's supposed to be all about. I do think that her personality is a huge issue, even maybe more so than the way that her outfit makes no sense. But we'll get into that later. I really wanted to just make sure that this idea that she's the goddess of the hearth was really clear. Hestia in like traditional sculptures, there aren't a ton of them, first of all, but usually when she's depicted she has some kind of like shawl over her head or head covering. She's really all about like domesticity, the home. She is an important goddess in ancient Greek mythology, so you know, they would pour out wine for her first in rituals and stuff. It's very interesting. Hestia's design is very cold, like her color palette is very cold. I think that that's a mistake since she's the goddess of the hearth and she's supposed to kind of be about like warmth and fire. I also did a bit of what they did in Hades, which was have like some grates from like a hearth. I just wanted her to look more like a goddess, more powerful, while also still kind of adhering to this anime idea that they should look young and attractive and still kind of in this anime-ish art style. But as you can see, like you can still incorporate those things and also have interest in showing anywhere on her character that she has to do with the hearth or that she's a goddess. I just don't think she looks particularly magical in her original design. She really looks like she's wearing uncomfy, cheap lingerie, and that's like not just a diss for a diss's sake. Like if you look at a lot of imagery of her, you can see her belly button and like the bulge of like her abdomen through her clothes, which means it's so tight and so thin. So I think Hades' design is actually really phenomenal. I know that there was a lot of people talking about how much they hated it. Anyone who thinks the designers over at Supergiant can't make attractive characters has never played one of their games. Their games have tons of really hot characters. They just realized that not every character design has to be sexy. Like, you're really limiting your stories and your characters a lot if every single one has to be like slim and curvy and pretty. It's just boring. Okay, so what do you guys think about all this? Do you think I'm taking all this too seriously? Do you agree with me? I really want to hear your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my wonderful patrons and members, including HoneyKitten18, Pink, Novel Goblin, West Art Channel, Loro, Data, Random World, Lily McFarlane, Artist James, Jamie C, Yume Lily, Skitten, Gold Pikachu, Among Us Skibidi, Aurora Morgan, Becca, Anastasia Evsiva, Kobe Octo VT, Viet, Graveyard Moss, Grexius, Maddie Momo, Brandon Stark, CB, Lucia Majiki, Liv, Ravenscrow, Zocelot, T-Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Kadaria, Astral Fox Art, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsugaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, blah 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 blah.